I am coming to you from my new office location called home. So, like a lot of us, we are probably homebound at this point. And I'm wearing my hat. I wanted to spare you the bad head. Oh my goodness. So, anyway, so there we go. Um, for the next few weeks, just have some thought processes for you, and just kind of wanted to encourage you in the midst of this process. You know, we've never been through anything like this before, so just you know, I kind of consider myself to be the perspective shifter, I guess, if you will. So you know, God just really has always kind of gifted me with the ability to make sense and to put a positive spin on whatever's going on. So, um, a couple of years ago, a friend of mine and I we were headed to a race, and and he was going through some difficult times, and he said, you know, he was just kind of challenging me in the midst of this process, and just said, "Hey, man, you know what do I do when I'm getting sideways?" And in my thinking. And so, you know, I thought to myself, man, that's a great way to put it, getting sideways, because, you know, we were headed to the races, and we were planning on being a little sideways in the vehicles that we were in. But in the midst of that process, when we get a little sideways in our thinking, what are some things that can really help us? So in the through that process, I started thinking through what are some key truths, and I shared some of those truths with him that just kind of popped in my head. And then when on our way back, he said, "Man, that really has helped me." After a couple of days of really thinking through those processes, and he said, "Man, I'd like to have a list of those." So what I want to do is, I just actually stopped when I got home, and I put together 20 of those key truths. So for the next 20 days, I just want to send you just a little video clip, and this will probably be the longest one because I'm introducing the concept. But for the next few days, I just want to just send you just a little short clip with an added truth each week. So I'll probably just say the ones before, just kind of line them out, and then I'll expand on the one that we're talking about. So um, in the midst of the most uncertain times in American history that we remember, we could call that, I guess, American history, um, modern American history, if you will. So you know, we have the ability to either react or act. And if we react, we are allowing the circumstances to trigger emotions, and then us respond in an immediate knee-jerk reaction to whatever's going on. Or if we act, on the other hand, we have the ability to stop and really evaluate and start that process of allowing God to settle our heart, not respond emotionally, but to make a wise decision in how we move forward and what we communicate to the people around us, our families, the teams that we're a part of, our neighbors, the people that are looking to us for encouragement, whatever that might be. So, you know, I really think it's important for us to see through the right lens. So, you know, you've heard me say this before, and I'll continue to say it over and over again. You know, we either see life through, well, most of us choose to see God through life's lens, and then therefore the reality of what God's attempting to tell us is kind of watered down. It's processed through that lens. So instead of seeing God through life's lens, let's switch that lens. Let's begin to see life through God's lens. So in the midst of that process, you know, just something to remind you here real quick. Truth sets us free. If truth sets us free, lies keep us in bondage. And lies are easier to believe because we feel them. It triggers these emotions inside of us, and that becomes our reality, and therefore it affects us on a daily basis. So when I get sideways in my thinking, I take a moment to remind myself of some key significant truths. And so today I'll start off with number one, and then you'll be getting these for the next 19 days in a row. So number one truth: And this is super simple, but yet it's just a great reminder, and we will build on these as we go, and it'll make sense a little bit more as we dive in. So, number one, super simple. God has me. God has us. God has this, and He has us right here, right now, in the midst of this situation. That is so. It is just imperative for us to just take a moment, take a deep breath, and just say, you know what? God has me. God has this. God has us. God knows this scenario. No surprises in heaven. So therefore, what that means for us today is that there is a specific strategy that God is allowing to come into our lives in the midst of His creation. And that strategy, the purpose for Him using that particular strategy, whatever that is to bring to fruition His purposes. And what that does is it gives us an opportunity to reframe how we interpret the things that are going on in life. So again, as we see these circumstances, as we see God and truth through these circumstances, we still feel the emotion of it. As we see the circumstances through God's lens, we trust and know that nothing can touch us that He hasn't either sent or allowed. And therefore, it allows us that honor and that privilege of really settling down and settling in a little bit. We still feel the emotion, but we see it through the right lens. We can respond in the right kind of way. So, my boss, Bob Landum, stopped me in the sanctuary yesterday, and I was just kind of walking through praying for the community and the leadership there here at the church. And and he stopped me and he said, man, one of the key components of what he feels like God is speaking to him right now is the 95-5 time. Most of you have probably heard me enough to know that principle. 95% of my quiet time I spend with the Lord, I'm just silent, just listening for Him and letting Him do what He needs to do in my heart. 5% of the time I'm actually talking to Him. The way I have it figured, He has a lot more to say to me than I could ever say to Him. And plus, if I was busy saying stuff, and no telling what it would be, and it probably wouldn't be relevant to whatever He was trying to tell me. So anyway, I'm pretty convinced that we're trying to learn things that God's not trying to teach us. So in the midst of that process, that 95-5 principle is really key, because in these busy times in which we live, I believe God is allowing us to really take some time and slow down and take that deep breath and just say, okay, God, speak to me in that still, small, quiet voice. I have been busy, and I have put aside the most significant thing that I can do, and that is to be quiet and still and let God settle our heart. So, since this is the case, since God has me and has us and has this right here where we are within this situation, watch this. This gives us an opportunity to engage, embrace, and learn to enjoy the set of circumstances that we're in, because God has me, God has us right here, right now, within this situation. Hope you're encouraged. Thanks, and see you tomorrow.